Jay Hernandez with us. Coach, we had a little hiccup with our connection, but I think we're all fine now, thanks to Andreas Christofi from the press office of the Federation. He helped us work around this issue. A little bit late, but I'm sure we're going to make up to our delay to the people watching us with all the interesting stuff you're going to tell us. Assistant coach, one of the assistant coaches of the Charlotte Hornets with us, Jay Hernandez. It's an honor to host you through our social media accounts of the Cyprus Basketball Federation, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us today. And before I give you the word, I just want to let people watching us know that they will be able to ask you questions at the second part of this seminar, of this clinic. So when you finish your presentation, then we'll take questions from the coaches and everybody else watching us. So, Coach, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. The honor's all mine. You know, I'm loving being able to be here and engage with you guys and all the coaches that will be on here. Today's clinic, it will be in regards to just some shooting technique drills that I like to start off with my players. Over the years, I've been able to work with some really, really talented players, not only in the NBA, but within my own business. You know, for years, I had my own training business in New York and got to work with guys extensively like Tobias Harris and Kemba Walker, you know, had CJ McCollum and, you know, guys like Michael Carter-Williams and those guys in pre-draft. And then as I got to the NBA level, you know, was fortunate enough to work against, you know, with guys like Evan Fournier and, you know, Elfrid Payton and those guys in Orlando, obviously Tobias Harris. And now that I'm in Charlotte, you know, had a chance to reconnect with Kemba Walker and Jeremy Lamb and obviously Coach James Borrego. So been fortunate to be around a lot of really, really good coaches and you know, coaches that have allowed me to bring some of the stuff that I did from my own training business, which was, you know, how do we compete against others when there's nobody else in the gym with us. And so what we tried to do over the course of time is also do some competitive shooting drills where we were able to show our players that we're working with at this level, like this other NBA player or this guy that plays in Europe was able to get this number. And now you're going to compete against his number, his time. And so I think it's really cool to be able to do that and have players engaged in competing like that, you know, maybe when there's nobody else in the gym, but just you and your player. So we're going to go into some of those things. I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. I'll share this.
Today is our lucky day, I guess, in regards to technology. But once we have your screen up, I'll let you know, Coach.
Okay.
All right. I think, yeah, we got your screen up. So again, you could continue.
Great. So, you know, for people that want to follow me on social media, they can follow me on Instagram at Coach Jay Hernandez or at Twitter at Coach JH. I get a lot of direct messages on Instagram and I do my best to try to get back to as many people as I can on there. So if there's further questions after, that would be a good platform to try to reach me on. You know, some of the shooting technique drills that I enjoy are burnouts, target practice, drop unders, jump ups. And we're going to talk today about freeze footwork patterns, you know, a way to get into pull-up jump shots by eliminating, you know, extra movements or extra footwork. So those are going to be the 5 things to focus on during the shooting technique drills aspect of this. I'm going to warn you guys that the presenter or the person shooting is just an average shooter. So you'll have an opportunity to see, you know, what that looks like in real form. The first one is what we call burnouts, and it's the opportunity to stay right underneath the basketball hoop. And as a coach, I try to make sure that I'm placing the ball right in their shooting pocket and slight knee bend every single time. And we're looking to get anywhere from 30 to 50 makes in this drill. And this is what it looks like. We'll go over and over again. And again, within 30 makes, you're going to feel a big time burn in your arm like you've been in the gym for over an hour. So we're building the mechanics of the shot that we want. We're building the muscle memory that we're looking for. within a good clip. You know, it might be 45 seconds to a 1 minute, but again, you will feel in your arm a little burning sensation the way you would if you were in the gym shooting, you know, 500 jumpers. And so it's a great way for us to ingrain the technique that we're looking to do, to warm up the muscles. And from there, we'll take a step back. The second thing we like to do is what we call target practice. And it's the ability to catch the ball, you know, right at your target line and to be able to shoot the ball straight. A lot of times when people shoot the ball, they shoot the ball with a crooked follow through. And so one way that we try to adjust this is when they shoot the ball straight to their partner, the follow through is always straight down. So all we try to do is go from a straight motion to change the angle towards the rim on the fifth shot. So this is what it'll look like. So again, straight, we catch it. We're not worried about trying to dip the ball. Both people that are shooting the ball to each other are working on their technique. And on the last one, we raise up and we shoot the basketball. So we'll continue this process. Again, doing this for 5 makes, same thing. We'll end up feeling a slight burn in the arm and in the areas that we want to get stronger in and build that muscle memory in. So that one is called target practice. The third one is called drop unders. Again, when we talk to a lot of the best shooting coaches and what I try to get my players to do is shoot right underneath the middle of the basketball. One way that we can control that is by having people get low, using their whole body, drop under, catch the ball with one hand and have your wrist already snap back. And at that point in time, I'll add the balance hand next to it without touching, you know, so we're working on being able to bring both hands up, finishing elbow above the eyebrow. But again, we're working on this technique right here. If for some reason we don't catch the ball properly where the wrist is already underneath the basketball, we bounce the ball again. And we just keep doing that process over and over again. Normally, I like to try to get guys to do 10 makes on our team. Just, you know, again, these are just shooting techniques, shooting, you know, warm-up drills that we do with our players. And each player might get something different. But this one is pretty consistent for a lot of our players to get them into the habit of dropping, getting underneath. This next one is called jump ups, and it's great in terms of when we want to start really getting our full body warmed up. And now we incorporate the jump, and we incorporate getting to, you know, our formation and our shot. And we'll do a number of jumps here, as you'll see. And we're trying to get the same jump, same landing every time, and then elevate right on the fourth one. So normally we'll do 3 jump ups, we'll shoot on the fourth one, and we'll work on making 5 shots. Again, everything is trying to be as consistent as possible, have a repeatable pattern, repeatable shot, so that when we end up having to maybe adjust our shot, you know, we have better defenses on us, that, you know, we still have the foundation in place, you know, to be able to make shots and be able to maybe take tougher shots down the line. Freeze pull-ups is a series that I started doing back in 1998 with a lot of my players. The reason why it started was because when I started playing, I wasn't the most athletic player. I was never somebody who could dunk in a game. And so what I tried to do was I tried to make my moves very quick. My pickups, when I dribbled the basketball into my shot, I wanted that to be fast. I wanted my footwork to be fast and clean. And I wanted to make sure that I was getting my shot off against either longer defenders, quick-handed defenders, more athletic defenders. And the way I did that was by maintaining separation a lot of times. A lot of times we talk about shot creation, we talk about creating separation, but I also like to talk to my players about maintaining the separation that you already have. And so that's really important. So what we try to do here, and you'll see in the first couple, those are bad examples. Those are the examples that I see from 95% of the players out there, where they'll make a move and they'll set up for the jump shot second. So again, right here, you're talking about I make the between the legs move and I'm setting up for my jump shot second. I make the move. The guard is going to follow the flight of the basketball. So wherever I dribble to, that's where that defender is most likely thinking I'm going. So here I am, I'm making an inside out, and I'm 1-2 stepping into my shot, and I'm getting closer to the defender. Here's an example of the freeze pull-up. Again, you can see the 1-2, the setup and the move are happening at the same time. The between, I'm jabbing and maintaining separation so I can get my shot off. And you can see the pickup is pretty quick. Here's an example, full speed of the shots. Turn the sound down so you can hear the footwork. You see the 1-2 jab, the stick, and the pickup are happening without me hopping or stepping towards the defense. So again, that's the freeze pull-up series. So just from a technical standpoint, you know, those are a few of the concepts that we like to work on. You know, obviously one, just getting the body warmed up, building the muscle memory in close with the burnouts, target practice to continue to work on straight follow through and extension and rotation, drop unders to work on getting underneath the basketball, the jump ups, incorporating the whole body to warm up the whole body, be able to jump soft, land, you know, in the same area, you know, have the good footwork there and not too much of a lean. And then lastly, we work on our freeze pull-ups in terms of how to get our shot off the dribble without getting into the defender's length or, you know, giving them a chance to recover on us. At this point, you know, if there's any questions in regards to some of those drills, I can take those before I get into the competitive shooting drills.
Coach, I think it's better if we wait to put together all the questions at the end. So chance for everybody to watch it. Yeah. So let's continue with the seminar. And we'll
here's a couple of examples of freeze pull-ups in real game situation. The inside out, for example, if I'm starting with the left hand, I'm going to try to go into a right foot, left foot pattern and get the shot off quick. Now, the hard part for that for most shooters is that when they go right, left at full speed like that, you know, they usually need the right leg again. They usually need to take a 3-step, and this is an example of that. On the other side, it's much easier because your right foot will be in front of your left foot. But if you take a look at Dame Lillard here, it's a quick, almost like a stutter step, right, left, right pattern. All right, back it up here. Again, quick, 1-2. And then here's that baby third step right there where he's able to maintain a 3-point shot. He's got the person backpedaling. Here's another example. See, on that first move, he had him. He took the second one, he got contested. But again, he was able to get the shot off against a guy who's 6'8", 6'9", you know, one of our 6'1" guards. And there's the first move. Initially, that would have been the shot he should have taken right there. He dribbled again, but he was still able to get off a pretty good, clean look for himself. Here's Dwayne Wade. Again, this is more of what we call bounce out. It's not necessarily sticking and landing, but just look what he does to Tobias here. The between the legs, Tobias follows the flight of the ball. He has to drop that left leg, and it gives him just enough time to get the shot off against a bigger defender, somebody who's trying to contest the shot. So those are just a few examples of the freeze pull-ups in real game situations. So here's an example of competitive shooting that we like to do. It's the competitive shooting board that we have here. And, you know, it's got a list of a number of different shooting drills that we like. And what we normally do, you know, in the past, we've had just a dry erase board where players could erase somebody's name and put it right where the Hornets player name is. And now we've gotten a little fancier. We put it on a big screen TV, and we have their actual signatures that they've already had on there, and we put them on electronically. But we have what would be the Hornets players high on there, and then the overall all-time record. And that's what we talk about competing. And, you know, now our best shooters, our best players are competing against some of the best shooters in the world, you know, whether internationally or from the NBA. And so at that point in time, you know, as you guys all know, you might have one guy who's your best shooter on your team, and he happens to win, you know, all of the shooting drills. And so this is a great way to say, hey, here's a chance to compete against JJ Redick. You know, here's a chance to compete against CJ McCollum, you know, and at that point in time, you know, now they realize they have to really lock in, and they have to, you know, be focused in order to even come close to beating some of those scores. So this is an example of a competitive shooting board that we would have up on our screen. First example of a competitive shooting drill that we like to do. It's a non-timed competitive drill, and it starts with more technique for us. We want players to start with a form shot, you know, just a few feet away. So it's just 5 feet from the basket. We also have another form shot. These are one-handed shots, you know, just a few feet past that. We have a 15-foot free throw line extended, non-jumping, two-handed shot. And then we back it up again, normally to what would equate to like a high school, American high school three-point line, where we shoot a jump shot. And then we back it up to the NBA line and have another opportunity at a jump shot. Now, what's great about this drill, again, it starts off, you know, being able to go five different zones. And we start again right here. This would be the first spot where the arrow is. And that would be a form shot. If we make that shot, we get a point. We back up to the form shot. We make that shot, we get a point. We now shoot the free throw shot. We get a point, jumper point, and then three-pointer point. That's 5 total points. All right, I can move on to the next round. I shoot the form shot. Let's say I make that. That would be 6. I make the form shot here, 7. I shoot the free throw, and I miss. I don't get an opportunity to take any more shots at this spot. So I lose all those potential point opportunities, and I move to the next zone. So right now I have 7. If I shot from this form shot and I missed that first shot, I would miss out on all of these potential shots. I move on to the next zone. All right, I make it. You know, now I'm up at 10 points. And let's say I make all 5 of these, I'm up to 15 points. So that would be 1 quarter. All right, just like we have 4 quarters in an NBA basketball game, we base it on that. And then we would start again just on this side, and we work our way around. That would be quarter 2. We start again, quarter 3 around, and quarter 4. And, you know, we always try to get our players to make 20 potential points or 20 baskets per quarter. You know, so the overall average would be an 80 of what we're looking for out of 100. All right. So a great shooter probably be right around an 86, you know, without any defenders on them. So great drill to warm up with, great focus drill, because if you miss and you're not locked in, you lose the potential points on the other shots that you could take from that round. Personal best, a drill that I got from Dave Hoplow, who's one of the best shooting coaches that I've seen in person. It's basically, again, for me, based on quarters. It's a non-time drill, but, you know, players should be able to do this within a minute, 15 seconds to get all the way around 1 quarter. And so it starts with a three-pointer. You know, again, you'd have a rebounder there, pass it back to them. They would do a pull-up jumper, pump fake 1 dribble pull-up for 2 points. And then they back it up to the three-point line, and they take a pump fake, dribble in, layup for 1 point. And again, here it's make or miss. You move on to the next round. So if I make my 3, I make my 2, I make my 1, I've got 6 points. I get to move on, all right, to the next round. I shoot the 3. Let's say I missed that one. I start with my pump fake pull up for 2. That's 8 points. And then I back up to the three-point line, pump fake, dribble in, layup for 1 point. Now I've got 7 points. And so that's the way the progression goes all the way around to the last zone. And then we start it over again. So quarter 2, we'll start with the three-pointer, 2-pointer, 1-pointer. I work my way all the way around. All right, that would be 2 quarters. From there, I go to the free throw line. And at the free throw line, I would end up taking 10 free throws, which are all worth 1 point each. So that gives you a little bit of an active recovery. After that, I go right back to quarter 3 all the way around, quarter 4 all the way around. And then when we have overtime, which would be another 10 free throws worth 1 point each. And the best score that you can get is 140 points. We have 2 players right now that have the current high. Sylvan Landesberg, who has been playing over in Europe for his career and has had a pretty good run. And Channing Frye, who's been a long-time NBA player, retired now, with 126 points is their high out of 140. So again, 1 round, 3, 2, 1, 6 points times 5 spots is 30. Another potential 30 here, and 10 points at halftime. So that would be 70 potential points going into round 3, quarter 3, quarter 4, and another 10 points for another 70. So 126 out of 140 in that drill. Great drill just to mix things up for your players. And you can try all different types of shots and give yourself different types of point values as well. Unlimited streak. It's another non-timed competitive shooting drill. This is one of my favorites. And again, it's the shooter starts at spot 1. They get, at that point in time, they get to start with a make. And then after every time they go, they move on to the next spot after a miss. So if they make 10 shots right here at round 1, after they miss, they move to round 2. If they happen to miss their first shot at round 2, they go to round 3. So the only spot where you get to start with a make is in round 1. And so right now we have the overall record, and make sure I have it right, is Ben Gordon with 92 made baskets in these 7 spots. So the hard part about this, which again is a mental focus thing from the 3-point line, is that once you miss, you have to move on to the next spot, and we just keep adding the total. So if we have 10 makes here and I miss it round 2, I go to round 3 and I make 5, I'm at 15. Go to round 4, I make 2, 17. Round 5, I make 3, right, 20, and so on, all the way till I get to the last spot. And again, the overall high, which is one of the, it might be the hardest record that we have right now, is 92 makes from those 7 spots. And we give guys usually 2 opportunities to try to run through this actual drill. Streak shooting. Now we start getting to some of our time drills. Because I started in training where it was just me, 1 basketball, and 1 player, a lot of these drills I do with 1 player, 1 coach, because that's what the records that we have. It allows the rebounder, to focus on making great passes. So if you have 2 players, that person has to rebound, not let the ball hit the ground, make good on-time, on-target passes back to the player, and then we would switch it. But in this streak shooting drill, again, we have 5 spots, and I got this from the Orlando Magic back when Steve Clifford was there as an assistant. They were doing this during pre-draft workouts, and I just love being able to share that with my players. And so we started doing this and started tracking it. Right now, the record, I believe, has been broken by Fletch McGee, who's been played this last year internationally. But originally, I think it was CJ McCollum at 7-2 is what we would call it, 7-2. Right now, the record is 8-1. And the terminology on that would be, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds. All right. You have to make 3 in a row at the first spot. You would move on to spot 2. Once you make 3 in a row there, you get to move to spot 3, spot 4, spot 5. We would stay here at spot 5. That becomes spot 6, spot 7. And the record is spot 8 with 1 make. So go over that again. If I say 8-1, that means that we were able to get zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I made 3 in a row. I got to spot 8, and I made 1 basket there. The terminology would be 8-1. All right, the record before that was 7-2 with CJ McCollum. So great drill. Again, 1 rebounder, 1 passer, 1 ball, 1 shooter, 1 minute, 30 seconds to try to get as many spots as they can. You can do this as well as a warm-up, from mid-range, bounce it out to, the international line, and then to the NBA line if you want to work on extending the range. Over and back, this drill, real good drill to start. The red arrows, signify where you have to go back to, okay? So for this one, we like to do 2 minutes for this series, and it starts with shot 1. Once you make, you get to move on. We move on to spot 3. Okay, so we skip spot 2. So we go over the spot, go to 3, and back to 2. All right, from 2, we go to 4, and we go back to 3. We go to 5, back to 4, 6, back to 5, 7. All right, so once we get to 7, that gets you 10 makes. And then at 7, you would start over again. All right, so that'd be 2 shots coming from here, 2 makes. All right, we would skip over spot 6 to go 5, back to 6, 4 to go back to 5, 3 to go back to 4, 2 to go back to 3, and then 1. All right, so just a good drill. Once we want to start incorporating some movement, some basic movement, catch and shoot wise, and we get players doing that. Right now, Evan Fournier has the high at 24 makes, and I think that number, because we haven't done this with many players, is low. I think that number can get up to closer to 28, 30 makes. And I'm sure you guys have some players that'll have a chance to break that number, and I look forward to hearing about it. Star shooting drill. This bumps up now to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Great conditioner. I got this from Coach Few over at Gonzaga. The way I do it might look a little bit different. I've always started, you know, with spot 1. Again, everything starts with a make. Run to spot 2, run to spot 3, cross court to spot 4, over to spot 5, and then right back to the beginning to spot 1. Again, I've liked to do this with players. Sometimes we'll work our way out if we want to do multiple 2.5-minute drills throughout a session. Sometimes we'll start with a mid-range, and with that mid-range, you know, we're looking for our NBA players to try to make 30. We bump it out to the high school range. We're looking at potential for 25 makes. And at the NBA range, we're looking for 4 stars. All right. So 1 star complete would be 5 makes. We're looking to try to get 20 makes. The overall record is DJ Augustine, who's a guard for the Orlando Magic. He got 28 makes, which is really, really hard to do. He was basically shooting, and he knew he was making, was running right to the next spot. He ran at a really fast pace. And, you know, he didn't wait for the ball to go in. Now, for most players, I would say 95% of players that shoot and run, they usually end up missing, and they end up having to come back, and they waste time. So a lot of this has to do with clean shots, even on the misses. Because there's only one rebounder, if it's a really bad miss and that person has to go chase down a ball, you know, 20 feet away and then pass it back to you, you know, you're wasting valuable time to get more shots up. So a lot of this is how you're locking in. Not only are you making shots, but what type of misses do you have? Around the horn, now we start bumping up to a 3-minute shot clock. And, you know, this one isn't so bad. You know, the shot starts on the release. Again, 1 ball, 1 rebounder. And it's 1 make at every spot. You know, once we make at each spot, 7 spots. When we get to here, we're going to make 2 shots. All right, so we'll start over again. Make 7, start at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and we start again at 15. We'll just keep working around the clock. You have to make before you move on. Just a good drill. Usually I like to do this because it's not too taxing on them, and it keeps them locked into just getting a lot of shots in 3 minutes. And the overall record is Kemba Walker. Let me just see what his number is. His number is 38. And what we try to do with all of our top players is top shooters is to try to get 30. So we're trying to get at least 10 makes for every minute that we're doing the drill. And, you know, that gets us to 30. And right now the record's 38. And I think probably 41, 42 is going to be the record sooner than later as well on this one. M drill. It's this one's a little bit confusing because it can almost work on an unlimited clock. Okay, so it starts with 1 minute, and we have to make 1 shot at each spot. So we start with 1 minute, we make it, we make it, we make it, we make it, we make it. Let's say we do that in 15 seconds. All right. Now we always have a minute for the next time that we do the drill, plus we add 45 seconds to this next round. The next round, now we have to make two shots. So now we're talking about 2 makes here, 2 makes here, 2 makes here, 2 makes here, and 2 makes here. And we see how long that takes us. Let's say that takes us 45 seconds to do for whatever reason. So we're adding a minute to what we already have, right? We always get a minute. And now since we have a minute left on our time, we add that. Now we have 2 minutes to try to attack 3 makes. It doesn't have to be in a row, but we're looking for 3 makes, 3 makes, 3 makes, 3 makes, and 3 makes. All right, let's say that takes us, for whatever reason, that takes us 1 minute and 30 seconds. We have left over 30 seconds left, plus we added a minute. So now we have 1.5 minutes for 4 makes. So you can see now we're having to make more shots and with less time. So it's 4 makes all the way around, 4 makes, 4 makes, 4 makes, 4 makes. Let's say we were able to get that and we only had 10 seconds left. Now we have 1 minute and 10 seconds to try to get 5 makes. So 5 makes, 5 makes, 5 makes. Let's say it dies here. Okay, there's no more time on the clock. At that point in time, we would say that, you know, we were able to get to 5 makes. We got to zone 4 and we made 2 shots. So that would be 5 makes. So 5, we would say zone 4, 5, 4, 2, because we made 2 shots at that range. The overall record is Marvin Williams. And this is, again, probably top 2 hardest records to beat. Let's see, Marvin Williams got, I'm gonna have to find that one for you guys. Here it is, 8, 3, and 4. So he was able to get to 8 makes. He was able to get to zone 3. So he got to zone 3 and he made 4 shots. All right. So obviously he was making all of his shots early. You want to have as much time left over in the bank to add to that minute that you're going to get back. So a little bit tricky. You might have some questions on this, but again, you start with 1 minute, you get 1 make, 1 make, 1 make, 1 make. Whatever you have left over, you add that leftover time to another 1 minute time slot. All right. And then you go 2 makes, 2 makes, 2 makes, 2 makes, 2 makes, whatever time you have left over. You always add that leftover time to 1 minute, but you keep increasing the amount of makes that you need at each spot.
Coach, if it's okay, if I could interrupt you for a second.
Yes.
Well, just a reminder about the minor technical issue we had, which forced us to move our seminar to YouTube on our YouTube page instead of our Facebook page. I would like to ask all the coaches and everybody watching us live right now through YouTube to also open up their Facebook page, so they will be able to give you any questions for later on. So all the questions will need to be posted on Facebook. That's just a reminder for the coaches. And ahead of the second part, Coach Hernandez will take questions. So, Coach, again, the word is back to you. And let us know when you're done so we can proceed with the second part with the questions.
Perfect. Yeah, we just have a few more competitive drills. I wanted to give you guys as many as I could here with examples of what the top players are doing. So that way you can have your players see how close they are and give them, somebody to compete against. And so this one's called the burner drill. And it's just a drill that I've gotten from my guys over at Pro Hoops in New York. And it's just pick one spot. So if you have an elite level shooter, this one, you can have multiple coaches, multiple, balls in this drill. You'll have one passer, but you're trying to get that player as many shots as possible with a 5-minute string in one spot. And obviously it's called burner because you're going to burn out your arm. You're going to feel a lot of tension in there. But, for the elite level shooters, this is the drill that we like to do with them and let them pick their spot. They can pick whatever spot they want to try to get the best number that they can. And the record that we have right now is 96 by Doug McDermott. From the Indiana Pacers. And so he was able to get 96 made baskets, made threes in 5 minutes. And again, you can have 2 basketballs in there. You can have 2 rebounders and 1 passer, as many people as you want to try to get that shooter as many shots as they can get off in 5 minutes. And then this one is called doubles. All right. So if you have two players that you would like to be competitive with against other partner groups, this is a great drill, and it's 2 minutes and it starts in the mid-range. All right. So again, working on just that touch of the mid-range to get your form, get your shot feeling good. Player 1 will shoot the basketball. All right. They will get their own rebound. All right. Once they get their own rebound, they will pass it to player 2. Player 2 is going to shoot the ball. Okay. And then they're going to get the rebound and then they'll pass it to player 1. You need to make 2 shots in a row as a team. So player 1 and player 2 have to make their shots before you can move out to the 3-point line. If player 1 shoots and makes and player 2 misses, all right, player 1 makes and player 2 misses, you're going to stay in the mid-range together until you both can make back-to-back shots to get out to the 3-point line. The total keeps adding up, though. So even if you're not making back-to-back shots, we still keep adding the number. All right, so 1 make, miss, 1 make, miss, 1 make, miss, and then we make back-to-back shots. That would get us to 5 points. Then we get to bump out to the 3-point line. Out there, once we shoot threes, you have to miss 2 in a row in order to get back into the mid-range. So the idea is to never miss back-to-back shots as a team. So as you're shooting your 3-pointers, you make and your partner misses, you make and your partner misses, you're both still shooting threes the whole time until the 2 of you miss back-to-back shots. Then you would be back in the mid-range. Once you make 2 in a row from the mid-range, you can go back out to the 3-point line. So the best shooting groups that I've ever seen do this would make their mid-range, and then they would never go back to the mid-range. They would stay out at the 3-point line for the whole time. Again, you shoot, you get your own rebound. The only rule we have here outside of the make 2 in a row or miss 2 in a row rule is that you can't shoot from the same spot twice in a row. You have to move from one spot to the next. So if you have somebody who's a great shooter and they only focus on making 3-pointers from the corners, now it's an opportunity to get them moving from different spots and getting different types of shots. The record here is Ben Gordon and Tobias Harris with a total of 48 points in 2 minutes. So that's a really, really good mark. For pro players, we're looking to try to get an average, a baseline of 30 points in a 2-minute period. And so if we can do that, they're shooting the ball pretty well. They're shooting the ball really well if they can get to a 38 to 40 point range. And the record overall is 48 points. And that is it right there. I'd like to open it up to you, Coach, and the rest of the crew.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach Hernandez. Just a quick reminder, I'll also say this in Greek, if that's okay, after I say in English.
Yeah.
Due to some technical issues, all questions for Coach can be given on our Facebook page of the Cyprus Basketball Federation. So we'll be monitoring that right now. And also Greek, για όλες τις ερωτήσεις των Coach Jay Hernandez, μπορείτε να τις ποστάρετε στη σελίδα της Κυπριακής Ομοσπονδίας Καλοσφαίρισης στο Facebook, από όπου θα δούμε τις ερωτήσεις και θα τις μεταφέρουμε. Ένα τεχνικό πρόβλημα μας αναγκάζει αυτή τη στιγμή να χρησιμοποιήσουμε 2 πλατφόρμες για το σεμινάριο. Συμβαίνουν και αυτά. So, Coach, as we wait for a few questions to come in, first of all, I'd like to thank you for those very interesting shooting drills. It was very interesting. If it's easy, I'd like to give you like a couple of intro questions. More of something we discussed outside of our live, which is now that basketball has been paused, we're being watched by coaches now that have suspended their practices and everything due to the pandemic. How can a coach keep his players motivated, even for a top level team or a youth level team during this crisis? What, as a coach, what do you propose to your colleagues in this subject?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us now, it's the ability to be creative and be able to do things like this. Zooms is something that now everybody knows about Zoom and how to use it. And I think that's really a great way to connect with your staff, to connect with your players. One of the things that we've tried to do with our players is give them different types of series to look at, NBA series, playoff series over the years. And we'll watch a game every 2 or 3 days, and then we'll connect, just like a book club. You read a chapter or 2, and then you get together and you talk about the book. It's the same thing that we're doing, from a professional standpoint, and watching these games and just seeing, some trends or some adjustments that teams made from game 1 to game 2. It starts getting you thinking about, the way you might approach certain after timeout plays, certain need 2, need 3 situations. So that's been a really, really good thing for us to be able to get involved with. Now we're starting to send them just different concepts of, passing, things that we like as a group, and, areas that we've seen growth in terms of just passing, what types of passes, and, different scenarios of how we utilize the pass, against certain defensive schemes. Also individually, just working with guys and trying to figure out, okay, how do we help them get better? And what are some player comparisons, who are guys that they look up to, and be able to put some edits together for them with their favorite player, or guys that are, top 3 or top 5 in the NBA at finishing rates, and show them just the different types of finishes, also show them their finishes and what areas that we can improve on from a player development standpoint when they come back, what drills we need to do, where our focus should be. And so I think that's really, really been a good, unique thing to do, a fun thing to do, with our guys, and, be able to exchange ideas and share, film. But, there's not a whole lot to do. Obviously there's drills and things that, players will ask for. So we'll get on FaceTime, and we'll do some things, and, we'll have interactions that way as well, just from, ball handling drills or different techniques that they like to see and have done. So, we've been trying a little bit of mix of everything, incorporate some of that stuff. And I think, just by, giving guys with our situation, we don't know if we're coming back yet. So it's a little bit tricky. We don't really know how much to give or, how much we should be doing at this point in time until we get a clear direction. But you can never go wrong by, connecting with your guys and being able to, show that you care. I think that's one of the big things for me. I'm planning on providing a dinner for a few of my guys from my favorite restaurant and just sending it to them and, let them know that I'm thinking about them. Again, just little gestures like that so that they know that, it's not just about basketball all the time, but, you're thinking about their well-being. And so I think that's another way for us to figure out ways to just connect with these guys and, for us to get better as coaches. I think that's what we're all trying to do right now. We're all trying to get better so that when we come back, we have more to give these guys, because I feel like our players are always looking to improve and they're looking to get better. And I think as they get better, you have to match that as well. And you have to continue to get better as a coach and be able to give them more. So, at this point in time for me, to be able to do, especially with my staff, with our video guys and our player development guys, be able to bring in coaches from college, from Europe, things like that, where they can come in and ask questions to those coaches and see how they do things from a defensive, offensive standpoint, how they do things from player development or video. It's all good for us to learn, and see if there's other ways that we can be doing things. And I think it's been great to be able to have everybody share this way.
Perfect. That's very, very good advice. And it's very important to have that in mind because we are going through some difficult times, sometimes that nobody's used to. So we have a first question came in from Stratos. Good evening, he says. It's nighttime here in Cyprus, Coach. We are a few hours ahead of you guys over there in the East Coast. It's an honor to have you with us, he says. My question is, do you bring the ball to your shooting hand when dribbling left and to the left to the right when dribbling right for the shot, or you just catch it off the dribble where you feel comfortable?
Great question. Yeah, I tend to, when I'm going right, I like to bring my left hand to my right hand. In terms of the pickup. So, a lot of times it depends on where guys are used to holding the ball. Some guys hold the ball in different places, but it's how quick can you bring the ball off the bounce to your shooting pocket, and I think that's the biggest thing. So if I'm going left, I want to be able to bring the ball to my right hand if possible, so that wherever my catch is for my pocket to shoot, I want to bring the ball to it, so a lot of times, the line has to change at times as well. And when you're playing against great defenders, that have their hand right there, where they think you're going to bring the ball up, at times you're going to have to bring the ball up over the top of the hand. All right. So when I dribble, I'm going to have to bring the ball up to my left hand or my left hand over to my right, because if I bring it low and try to come up, that's where the ball gets stripped a lot of times, against elite level defenders who have really quick hands. So, something that we've done with Kemba Walker was at times we would, change what we call his line. The line would be here at all times. And so people always practice, going up the same line. But what happens when you play against an elite level defender or you're an elite level offensive player? At times you're going to have to adjust your line so that it's not coming straight through this way, but sometimes it might come over the top. So, that's something that's more advanced, for players that are seeing elite level defenders. But, that's a great question. I tend to like to not bring, if I'm going left, not to bring my right hand over, because that a lot of times that's going to bring my shoulder over as well. And so if I can maintain the balance of my shoulders to where I want to take it, then it's easier for me to get it back to my right side.
Perfect. Coach, another question from me, if that's okay, till we get some more questions in.
Yeah.
It's had to do with the returning to action after this pandemic. Of course, a lot of teams don't know if they are returning to action and when that will happen. But we do see some states in the United States opening up, getting ready to return to the practice courts. Same thing going on in Europe. So have you discussed as a team ways to bring your players back into fitness readiness for the rest of the season? And do you have any tips on this subject that you could share to the coaches?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just trying to follow the guidelines for, what we're being told. Here in the United States, the state mandates, whether, you can come back and what phase you're into returning back to work. So we're kind of waiting on that a little bit to figure out, what phase we're going to be in. Also get direction from, Commissioner Silver in regards to when we'll be back to playing, and that because we have a performance staff, they usually will let us know how much time we're going to be on court with players, how hard we should be going with those players, the mix of strength and conditioning, athletic training and basketball skills workouts. So we're going to rely on, our team to let us know how much time that's going to be and when we return. And hopefully we'll be able to get back on the court in a few weeks. And then we'll have a better understanding of how long, how hard, and a combination of all those things, what the progression will be to return to play. So once we know that, then it'll make it easier for us to decide how much time we need to spend with these guys. And we'll meet as a staff, as a coaching staff, we'll meet with our medical team, we'll meet with our strength and conditioning coaches, and, we'll decide, how to get guys in, what the new protocols were going to look like, when we do get back, are we going to get tested? Are we going to have to disinfect everything when we come in? How many players can come on the court at one point in time? So a lot of that will be, predicated on that. But, I know everybody's excited to get back to the gym. I felt like we were playing really, really good basketball, the last month of the season. And, we have a very young team. So we saw major strides with our team defensively. We saw some really good continuity with our team as well in the way they were passing and sharing the ball. And so, we had one more month left, and we were looking to continue to build off of that momentum that we had as of late.
Okay, another question here from George. Should we emphasize on the technique of the shot or on the timing of the shot?
So the timing of the shot is, something that comes when, player has really good technique to me, so I think a lot of times where if I'm hearing the question right, like sometimes you have to time your shot differently, when you're playing against different defenders or you're in different scenarios. And so I think the technique is great. I always start with different technique drills just to warm us up, to make sure that our foundation is always strong. And at times we will come back to form techniques at the end of the workout when they're tired as well. I think everybody starts with form techniques at the beginning. I like to also finish off with great form techniques because now they're building up great habits. It's a habit, that when they're tired, their body still knows really good habits and not just shooting shots and getting diminishing returns. So I think it's exciting to be able to, mix in different timing aspects of things with players as they get comfortable with the technique. But I think, timing and technique, they couple together. You could see that, being a technique as well, and learning how to do that. So I think for our players, they're going to see a combination of all those things, especially the better shooters that we have, the other shooters that we have that are developing. We have to start off very slow and not be afraid of making mistakes and not being afraid of having it take too long, in their mind. We have to keep them locked in on the process so that they can build up, the muscle memory that they need to become really elite level shooters.
Great. Just a reminder to all those people, all those coaches watching us, that they can ask their questions to Coach Jay Hernandez on the Facebook page of the Cyprus Federation. Όλοι όσοι θέλουν να κάνουν ερώτηση στον προπονητή Hernandez μπορούν να το κάνουν μέσα από τη σελίδα της Ομοσπονδίας στο Facebook. All right, Coach. So another question we have here, since obviously this is from Coach from a youth level, how can we? It's in Greek, so I have to translate the question. Yeah. How can we make these drills differently so they could be focused on youth players? Or something else that we should focus on for youth level? If you could comment on this.
Yeah, I think some of the drills that we had that are non-timed drills are very good for youth players because they're still competitive, and you can still say, okay, last week, we did these different form shots and we worked our way around, the basket, and we started in close and we worked our way out. You made 30% of your shots, and then you can have them compete against themselves to see that are they progressing, are they making adjustments to the technique that maybe was holding them back, So I'm a big believer in, staying within your range until that range feels comfortable, and then you can move back. I think most young players, they don't want to do certain things because they're uncomfortable with it. So they rather have a bad percentage feeling comfortable than, maybe getting a little bit worse in the beginning, and then getting really good with, maybe a new technique that you're trying to teach them, because they're afraid of how they're going to look. And so a lot of it is the psychology behind it, right? I always told my players, make it ugly. It's a weird translation, I think. But I don't want players looking pretty or looking perfect in workouts. I don't mind if they're making mistakes, because then to me, that's showing that they're really trying hard, or two, that I'm challenging them. And so if one or the other is not there, then, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So I think it's very important to just, take the layers down and say, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to look funny with this or to feel uncomfortable. And so I think a lot of when I was working with my youth, a lot of it was non-timed shooting drills. So we focused a lot on technique, and we just engaged in that. And then you can always get a little bit faster, a little bit more competitive in other areas, some of your conditioning drills, some of your ball handling drills. But you don't necessarily need to, or finishing drills as well. But, from a shooting standpoint, I would take as much time as needed, especially with a young player, to make sure that they build the proper habits.
Great. So just an update. We have our colleague Andreas from the Federation working to fix all these technical issues. So now we have the comment section open on YouTube. So people are, I guess, easier now to ask questions directly to Coach. We do have a coach here from Nikos. He wants to know, first of all, he says, good evening as well. And we thank you for all this useful information. Can you tell us if there is some logic and behind the series, and again, I'm translating from Greek. Yeah. Is there some logic behind the series that you put the offensive plays during your preparation? Is there a reason of the particular set of each play, one after each other, on the way you do your preparation?
Are we talking about the actual drills that I showed, or?
Yeah. If there's a reason why you do the drills in those particular order, that's
So so those drills aren't in order. I was just showing a couple of our favorite techniques overall, and so like the burnouts is probably the one that we would start with first, because it's the closest. And then it just depends on the shooter that we're working with. There's probably another 30 or more drills that we have that are under the free throw line that we would use as well, depending on what we're trying to work on with that specific player. And so those drills weren't in order. They were just some of the drills that I like to use most often with players. They're the ones that we see that we need to use most often, because again, the burnouts is good for the warm up. The target practice is great for extension and rotation and follow through of your shot. The drop unders that we've talked about, where we drop the basketball and get underneath it, forces you to get under the basketball in the middle of the basketball, which is really good for us. The jump ups gets you, working on that warm up and the progression of landing in the same spot every single time. And, obviously the freeze pull up series, starts to get a little bit more advanced off the dribble. So, you can pick and choose what you want to use with whatever you're already using. And there's so many good drills to do. I just wanted to give a few examples to make it a little bit more interesting and build out your package.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if Nikos will ask a question, if he wants maybe a follow-up question, he could always ask it in English. It'll be easier for us to give the straight question to Coach and not pass it through translation. Just wanted to know, Coach, and I am personally a journalist, not a coach. So sometimes, although I do cover basketball for years, but sometimes maybe something's lost in translation. So maybe if Nikos wants to follow up with some kind of a question, he's more than welcome to do so. So another comment from Yorgos on our YouTube channel. He greets you. He says, you're very helpful with what you told us. Great drills. And he would like to know how you can send, how you could send him and all the other coaches watching the notes of this seminar.
Yeah, if you're interested, you can just send me a direct message, at Coach Jay Hernandez, and we can try maybe put that back up again, but at Coach Jay Hernandez on Instagram. And a lot of coaches who were interested just direct message me there. And then I made sure that our video coordinator was able to send out these drills to you guys, so you would have that. But, I definitely think the drills are good, and there's so many variations. You know, the one thing that I liked coming up, because not all those drills were mine, they were drills that came from other places, was that we were able to build up, you know, the database of, you know, the different shooters that competed. And I think that's always fun. Like what are you looking for your players? You know, whether they're youth level, you know, you're looking to make certain amount of shots from mid-range or a high school three. You know, are you a college player or, or top level pro player? You're going to have your baselines, and then you'll have obviously the overall record for who the best is of all time. And I think that's a great way to keep people engaged and competing.
Okay, and yes, we will have our the video on demand on our Facebook page and our YouTube page of the Federation, our YouTube channel. So yes, all coaches who may have missed the beginning where you did give your contact info, they will be able to watch and see the info there. So we have a couple of more questions that came in. One is from Michalis. What is your opinion about the shooting form of a shooter? All the great shooters like Curry, Allen, Reggie Miller, are shooting from very low. In Europe, we teach the shooting form from the height of the chest. What is your opinion?
Yeah, I think, for a lot of players, when you talk about elite level guards that can create shots for themselves, or they understand the timing and distance of things, like those guys never have a hard time getting those shots off, right? So that's the first thing. If it's a younger player that has an exaggerated dip on the basketball to come back up, and you can see that it's completely slowing down their process and they're getting their shot blocked or everything's getting contested. I've always taught my younger players to be low with their body, to be prepared, to have their hand already ready to catch the ball. And so, yeah, it would end up being around the chest level. And then when they release and they get up, the elbow is always above the eyebrow. And so, I always like to teach my players to be able to catch it up and keep it up as much as possible. But there are times where, because of the pass, or some people just, feel more comfortable with a little bit of momentum, because obviously, those guys shoot from great distances, and they're shooting very, very difficult shots, so if you had them in the gym by themselves, you probably wouldn't even see them do certain things that you see sometimes happening in games, because now the level of defense is at the highest level. And, the way that they're getting their shots off are at the highest level as well, off the dribble, off of movement. So, for me personally, I do like to teach the way that you're talking about. I try to minimize as much movement as possible so I can have a repeatable shot. But, there are so many great shooters that shoot differently. And so we have to figure out, what it is that they do well, and how do they get their shots off, and if you can start looking at that, you can also develop your players from, that level all the way back down. You start to realize their footwork, might be elite, and so they're able to get a little bit more momentum by dipping the ball back down to get the shot off. But, Curry shooting the ball from, 40 feet out and making a high percentage, so I think when you're looking at those kinds of guys, I'm not looking so much at, the technique, but what's happening before the technique that allows them to create that opportunity to get that shot.
Open up my microphone here. Another question from Dimitris. He says, hello, coach. When do you expect your players to perform their best on these competitive drills? And do you tweak their shots regularly during the season, or is it a more off-season focus to keep their consistency throughout the season?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start with that first. In terms of technique, there may be something that we're noticing in terms of the way they're setting up for their shots, and it might be with their footwork, which I keep going back to, because I think the feet are one of the most valuable parts of the shot that people don't talk about. And so just the way they're balanced, the way they're getting into their shots, things like that, is really a big deal. And then, if it's something like we said, we're noticing whether they're dropping their shooting hand, or, there's a very minimal technique, like we said, the crooked follow through, we'll just take it back to a technique drill to try to get them back to good habits. And so we're not going to change anything in their shot. We just might adjust, or get back to, the really good habits that we had before in the off season, where we were doing it every single day. When you play 82 games, there might be some slippage, and you might lose something, throughout the season in terms of actual skills. And so, I think it's just important to get back to the habits that you had focused on already. So it's really important in the off season to establish, what your verbal commands are for certain things when you're shooting, to talk about, the techniques that you're going to do over and over again, so that you can come back to saying, we need more arc. These are the drills that we're going to work on to get more arc. We need to straighten out the shot. These are the drills we need to do to straighten out the shot. And when you have that in place, it puts them in a confident and comfortable place because they have already been there before. You're not showing them something new in game 40. And so I think it's important to really have your plan laid out ahead of time, and that will help you throughout the whole season to help them adjust their shot. I don't know if I missed the first question though. I think you're on mute. I can, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry again. I had my microphone off. The first part of the question was, when do you expect your players to perform their best on these competitive drills?
Yeah, I think they're going to be best in the off season. A lot of these drills are great. In the off season, we have time to recover, so we won't start with the high intensity necessarily 2.5 minute drills where we're running in the star pattern right away when we come back from a month being off. That'll be something that we progress to. So the quarters drill that we do with form, that's something that you can do right away. Again, it might not be all 4 spots for young players. You might just do 2 rounds with young players, just to get them going, get them acclimated. So it's all based on what level you're at and how much you're going to do. You guys know, as coaches, you guys have been doing this a long time, know how to progress your players. So for me, it's an off-season thing, and all off-season. Again, when you're spending just maybe some more individual time with players, and some players are traveling or doing other things or playing with other teams, it's an opportunity to one-on-one, after days and days of being with these guys, to give them something new and competitive to do. A lot of times we like to have our players pick 1 or 2 competitive shooting drills that they want to try to beat that day. So I'm not always telling the players as a coach what they have to do. I'll let them choose. Okay, today go look at the board and see whose record you want to beat today, and they enjoy doing that too. They enjoy picking what they want. Sometimes they'll pick a harder drill, and you can see where their mindset is at that point in time as well.
Great. Another question from Vimos. He wants to know he wants to find out if there are some team shooting drills that you could share with us, either right now, or maybe if you have something prepared you could send.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit difficult from a team standpoint, to do things, but like, we like to use end of workouts and stuff. We call them the Ginobili shooting drills, where we have multiple baskets, and we end up having players start in the corner. So we'll have the players themselves. Let's say you have 12 players, 3 players per basket. So we have 4 baskets, and there'll be a passer, there'll be a rebounder, and a shooter. And what we try to do is, we try to get them to make 3 shots, and then we rotate. And it'll be the first group to get to 10 makes or 6 in a row. So once they get to 10 makes or 6 in a row, they win that spot. And then from there, we can end up doing a series of, movement shots into the corner. We call them drifts. So the person will drift from the wing all the way to the corner, and they get that shot, and they have to run back to the wing and come back to the corner. So we'll do different types of shots, and you can pick any shots you want. You can get the first team to, win 5 times, because there's so many different unique things you can do with flybys and fakes. You can do wing to corner. You can do transition runs. So there are a lot of different types of shots you can do, and it's a great drill. It keeps them competitive, and if you get 6 in a row, the game's over, or first team to 10. So that's one of our favorite drills. Another good drill that we like to do, we call streaks as well. It's similar to what we did before with individual streak, but you would have, you'd have a shooter, you'd have a passer and a rebounder, and they would just keep rotating. Same thing, you would go for a minute, you can go from 5 spots, and you see how many makes they can get in a minute in a row. So if the high is 5 makes in the first spot, you would add that to the high of how many makes in a row you got at the second spot. So if I got 5 in a row on the first spot, I got 8 in a row the next, I add that total, I have 13. I go to the next spot, 3 in a row, now, you just keep adding it. So I think that's a great way, again, to keep all the guys focused and make sure that there's pressure on the shots that you're taking as an individual shooter. Because if your team has 8 makes, 9 makes in a row, you don't want to be the guy that misses. So it starts to, play that mind game with you. And that's a really fun, creative drill, basic drill. And then a lot of the other shots that we do, we just do within the flow of our offense. We just make sure, if we have some kind of corner action or pistol action that we're doing, have the guys make the read and then, get them to the spots that they need to empty out to, and then they'll get shots there from our coaches. So we'll do a lot of game specific 3-man, shooting drills like that as well.
All right. Just the last call for all the coaches watching us, everybody else, for any questions to Coach Hernandez, either on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page of the Cyprus Basketball Federation. You could ask any questions you want. This is our last call. So while we wait to see if we have any more questions, let's go to one we had from Thomas. He wants to know, how much time does it take to change the shooting form of a player? 3 weeks, 1 month? How do you progress as the weeks go by?
Yeah, great question. And I think it really depends on the shooter that you have and where they are in their progression, how strong they are, things like that. But, I think it's to me, it's less about the hours and more about the level of engagement that the player has, and more about, the type of focus that they have when they're not with you. There's so much you can do, only so much you can do as a coach with your player for that hour. But then when they leave you and they start shooting or they start playing in games, what does their shot look like then? Are they continuing to try to shoot the same way that they're working on in practice, or are they going back to their old habits? And sometimes they don't even know as players, because they've been doing things for so long, they don't even realize what they're doing half the time when they're playing. So, for me, if you're working on somebody's shot, I tend to not want them to play in games, for at least a month. I'd like to have a month where they're not competing one-on-one. They're not competing against other people, that, they can just build their overall mechanics and focus on that. Eventually I might give a contest, to see how comfortable they are with that and see what their range of distance is. But, I've noticed, at this level, it still takes over a year for people to feel super confident in a game, shooting at a high level, with a new technique, so I always try to give my guys a good solid year where, you have to get past the phase of them thinking about their shot when they have it, when it's wide open, of I have to do this now. When it gets past that point and it gets to the point where they're just shooting without thinking, I have to do this before I do this, or, I think that's when you've actually changed somebody's shot, and I think it starts with, free throws as well, things that you're doing at the free throw line and the mechanics you have there. Because I think if you can fix the free throw, which is where you have the most time to work on your best technique, if they're starting to do that consistently, then that they're eventually going to be able to change that or rearrange that to make sure that they're getting to a point where they're comfortable shooting the ball, in live game action, and that's one thing that scouts do a lot of. They look at how guys shoot at the free throw line, and they think that if a guy shoots at a high percentage at the free throw line, that eventually they can become a very good shooter, even though their numbers may not show it in college or at the lower levels.
All right, Coach, thank you very much. I think we'll wrap it up here. We had a fair amount of questions coming in at the end, despite us confusing our followers, sending it throughout different social media platforms to ask questions. Again, this video, I want to let everybody know that this video will be posted on our YouTube and our Facebook channel, and people will be able to watch again all the drills, all the shooting drills that Coach Jay Hernandez presented to us, and of course your contact info is in the beginning of your presentation, so people can contact you anything they need. Again, Coach, if you have anything last to add, I'll give you your final word, and then we'll call it good night for us and a good rest of the day for you.
No, definitely. I want to thank you guys. Thank you personally for moderating this and translating. And just a great experience to be able to share with everybody. And I think the biggest thing for me that I've learned over the course of time is that when you do things the right way, it takes longer to succeed, but it lasts longer when you do. And I think that's the biggest thing. And there's no shortcuts in development. There's no shortcuts in the way we improve as coaches. And so, continue to do things the right way, be consistent, and your approach is going to be the best thing that you can do for your players. And I think the best thing that we can all do for our careers. So thank you again for having me be a part of this. And I look forward to seeing what's next.
Right. Thank you very much, Coach. And I wish you all the best in the rest of the season. And hopefully the season will continue and be back on the court as soon as possible.
For sure. Thank you again.